Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. How much do I need to have saved up in order to retire? This is the big question. Whether we're aiming for an early retirement or a more traditional retirement, this is the question most of us are asking ourselves. And maybe we don't use the word retirement. Maybe we're asking ourselves, how much do I need to have saved up in order to reach financial independence or financial freedom? But the premise remains the same. It's how much do I need to have saved up in order to not be reliant on a paycheck? And there's a lot of rules of thumb out there that can help us to answer this question. One of the often cited ones comes from Fidelity Investments, saying by the time you reach the age of 67, you should have 10 times your annual income saved up in investable assets. And what I really like about this benchmark is that it gives you multiple benchmarks to aim for throughout your entire working career, saying that you should have 1 times your annual income saved up by the time you're 30, 3 times by the time you're 40, 6 times by the time you're 50, and so on. And I think having multiple milestones to hit along the way is a far better method of keeping you on track to your investing goals than simply having 1 milestone to hit by the age of 60. One of the biggest questions that tends to pop up when this chart is shown is, what are these income multiples based off of? Is it based off your starting income or your final income? And the answer is it's based off your income at that age. So it's definitely a moving target and it changes as your income changes over time. Now, of course, as with any rule of thumb, it's not perfect, but I do think it's useful in giving you targets to aim for. And it's safe to say that most people are not hitting these targets. According to the most recent data released from the Federal Reserve, here are the typical net worths based on age in America. And with numbers like this, it's pretty easy to see that most people are falling short of hitting Fidelity's recommended thresholds at pretty much every age. For instance, if we assume a $50,000 income by the age of 60, based on Fidelity's recommendation, that individual would need about $500,000 in investable assets. And based on the most recent data available, the typical person is probably about halfway there. Enter Fidelity's 45% rule, which states that your retirement savings should generate about 45% of your pre-tax, pre-retirement income each year, with Social Security benefits covering the rest of your spending needs. Fidelity recommends the 45% rule in tandem with their rule based on the multiples of income because they yield similar results, assuming that you're flexible with when you retire and your rates of withdrawal. For instance, if you had a $100,000 income prior to retirement, applying the 45% rule, you would want your investments to replace $45,000 worth of income each and every year. That would mean you would need a nest egg of $1.125 million using the standard 4% withdrawal rate, or $1 million using Fidelity's recommended 4.5% withdrawal rate. And if we use Fidelity's 10x rule with a $100,000 income, you would want investable assets of $1 million. So using either of Fidelity's recommendations, you get to the same endpoint. Fidelity does go into a bit more detail here, as many of these numbers are based on your age. If you retire sooner, you're going to need to have more in savings and you would need to have a more conservative withdrawal rate. Whereas if you retire later, you would need less in savings and you can have a more aggressive withdrawal rate. For instance, if you retire at the age of 62, Fidelity recommends that you're able to replace 55% of your income from your own investments and withdraw slightly less than 4% on an annual basis. Whereas if you retire at the age of 70, they say you would only need to replace 40% of your income through your investments and can withdraw closer to 5% on an annual basis. And while those percentages may not seem that drastically different, they lead to very different portfolios. So let's run another example with an individual who has a $100,000 income as they're approaching retirement. If this individual were to retire at the age of 62, the recommendation is that their investments would generate $55,000 a year. And using a 3.9% withdrawal rate, they would need a portfolio of about $1.4 million. On the other hand, if we have an individual entering into retirement at the age of 70, their investments would need to generate just $40,000 a year, and they would get to use a more aggressive withdrawal rate of 4.9%, meaning they would need a portfolio of just over $800,000. The portfolio recommended for a 70-year-old is almost half of that of what is recommended for a 62-year-old, and if you retire anywhere in between 62 and 70, the numbers would adjust accordingly. But this definitely shows the impact of an early retirement versus a delayed retirement on your investment needs. And the big factors at play here are life expectancy and Social Security benefits. It's also worth considering here that the numbers in either of these examples tend to be on the more conservative side. Based on Fidelity's own research, most retirees don't need to replace 100% of their pre-retirement income. Instead, most retirees need to replace between 55% and 80% of their pre-retirement income in order to preserve their current lifestyle. And this simply comes down to the fact that most people have lower day-to-day expenses once they step away from the workforce. And also, once you leave the workforce, you no longer need to save for retirement, so you can reduce your income needs accordingly. And quite honestly, it's probably a better idea to base your retirement budget on your expenses rather than simply your income. And a lot of times when we talk about investments or income needs for retirement, very little attention is given to Social Security. But for most retirees, Social Security plays a huge factor in their retirement plans. And when it comes to Social Security benefits, the lower your income was during your working years, the higher the percentage of your income that will be replaced by Social Security when you get to retirement. Whereas the higher your income was during your working years, the lower the percentage of your income that will be replaced once you enter into retirement. According to Fidelity, if you had a $50,000 income, you can expect that about 35% of that would be replaced by Social Security in retirement. Whereas if you had a $300,000 income, you could expect that only roughly 11% of your income would be replaced by Social Security in your golden years. So the bigger your income, the more the burden of saving for your retirement falls onto your shoulders if you want to keep up that same lifestyle in retirement. You can also see from this chart that Fidelity recommends that those with lower incomes tend to have higher income replacement needs closer to that 80% mark, whereas those with higher incomes tend to have lower percentage replacement needs closer to that 55% mark. Now, of course, none of these numbers are set in stone. How much you need depends on your personal circumstance and the lifestyle you want to live in retirement. But these rules of thumb can help you to make more informed decisions. They can help you on your journey to financial independence. And if you have any other guaranteed streams of income, think a pension, that would go a long way in reducing your overall investment needs for retirement. Just remember that finance is personal and your situation is going to be unique to you. For most of us, our income is the biggest determinant in how much we're able to invest over time, but also how much we're going to need in investments once we reach retirement. Because quite simply, most of us allow our income to determine our lifestyle. We use it as a barometer for what kind of house we can afford, what kind of cars we can afford, what kind of vacations we can take, things like that. That's why so many of these financial freedom and financial independence guideposts are dictated by income. But the more breathing room you can create in your budget, meaning the further you can get away from living that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle that so many Americans do live, and live well within your means and below your means, the easier it is going to be for you to achieve financial independence. When are you planning on stepping away from the workforce? And how much of your retirement income needs are you planning on having coming from your own personal investments? Let me know your answer in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.